the Crimea bridge in an underwater attack. I'm going to show you this video, which was posted by Ukraine's intelligence agency, showing the moment the bombs went off.
At precisely 4:44 a.m. on June 3, 2025, while Russian and Ukrainian diplomats slept peacefully in Istanbul hotels after conducting what they called productive peace talks, Ukrainian divers executed one of the most audacious military operations of the modern era. In a coordinated underwater explosion, they detonated 1,100 kilograms of military-grade explosives beneath Vladimir Putin's most treasured infrastructure project, the $4 billion Crimean Bridge.
Went off. While this is the third time Ukraine has hit the 12-mile bridge that's connecting occupied.
This marks the third deliberate attack on this symbol of Russian occupation since the war began. But here's what makes this extraordinary. Each time, Ukraine has used a completely different method. This time they went underwater, spending months in secret preparation, placing explosives with surgical precision beneath the most heavily guarded bridge in Russian territory. This isn't just military strategy. This is psychological warfare operating at the highest level of sophistication. To understand the magnitude of what Ukraine accomplished, you need to grasp the scale of this operation. The Kerch Strait Bridge, connecting mainland Russia to occupied Crimea, isn't just another piece of infrastructure. It's a 19-kilometer marvel of engineering, the longest bridge in Europe, that cost more than the annual GDP of many nations. Ukraine's security service spent months infiltrating one of the most heavily defended targets in Russian-controlled territory. They had to approach the bridge undetected, navigate through multiple layers of security, including naval patrols, underwater sensors, and constant surveillance. Then they placed over a ton of explosives beneath the waterline of the bridge's support pillars, all while maintaining absolute operational security. Vladimir Putin himself drove the first truck across this bridge when it opened for traffic in 2018, declaring it would stand as the bridge to the future that would permanently connect Crimea to Russia. The Russian president treated the opening as a personal triumph, a physical manifestation of his geopolitical ambitions. Ukrainian special forces just proved that Putin's permanent future isn't guaranteed. The explosion sent shockwaves not just through the bridge's concrete pillars, but through the entire premise of Russian territorial control. Traffic stopped for hours. Russian officials immediately claimed minimal damage and insisted the bridge remained fully operational. But the dramatic footage released by Ukraine's security service tells a very different story. The timing of this operation reveals strategic thinking at the highest level. While diplomats in Istanbul discussed ceasefires and prisoner exchanges, Ukrainian operatives were already in position, waiting for the optimal moment to strike. What makes Ukraine's campaign against this bridge truly remarkable is the evolution of tactics. This is the third successful attack on the Crimean Bridge, and here's what demonstrates Ukrainian strategic brilliance. They have never once repeated the same methodology. October 8, 2022, the truck bomb operation, a carefully planned explosive device detonated at 6:07 a.m. while being transported across the bridge, creating a massive fireball that collapsed 2 spans of roadway into the Kerch Strait. The explosion was so powerful it ignited fuel tankers on an adjacent railway, creating apocalyptic scenes of twisted metal and raging flames that shocked the world. The symbolic timing was perfect, occurring the day after Putin's 70th birthday. July 17, 2023, the Sea Drone Innovation. Ukraine deployed experimental, unmanned underwater vehicles, maritime robots that approach the bridge like something from a science fiction thriller. These Sea Baby drones struck the support pillars with precision, demonstrating Ukraine's rapidly advancing unmanned warfare capabilities. The attack killed 2 civilians, but proved that Ukraine could strike from the sea with devastating accuracy. June 3, 2025, the underwater mining operation, the most sophisticated attack yet, requiring months of covert preparation, infiltration of heavily defended territory, and the placement of explosives beneath the waterline where traditional defenses are useless. This operation required not just technical expertise, but extraordinary operational discipline. Each attack represents an escalation in complexity and innovation. Each one has proven that Russian defensive measures, no matter how extensive or expensive, can be defeated by Ukrainian creativity, patience, and tactical evolution. The pattern sends an unmistakable message to Moscow. Nowhere is safe, no target is beyond reach, and Ukrainian ingenuity will always find a way. To understand why this bridge matters so much, you have to see it through the lens of military logistics and psychological warfare. This isn't just concrete and steel spanning water. This is the primary artery that keeps Russia's entire southern war machine supplied and operational. Every tank rolling toward Ukrainian positions, every missile launcher heading to the front lines, every supply convoy carrying ammunition and fuel to Russian forces, the vast majority of this military traffic has to cross this single choke point. The bridge serves as the critical link between Russia's industrial heartland and its occupied territories in southern Ukraine. But the timing of this latest attack reveals something even more significant about Ukrainian strategic thinking. This underwater explosion came exactly 48 hours after Ukraine executed Operation Spider's Web. Their devastating drone strikes against Russian strategic air bases that destroyed over 40 aircraft across 5 different locations spanning multiple time zones. Think about what this means. In just 72 hours, Ukraine systematically targeted and damaged both Russia's long-range aviation capabilities and its primary southern supply route. 2 massive, complex operations executed with precision timing while peace negotiations were actively underway. This isn't random violence. This is coordinated strategic warfare designed to degrade Russian military capabilities while strengthening Ukraine's negotiating position. Ukraine isn't just surviving the Russian invasion anymore. They're systematically dismantling Russian strategic assets, proving that they can strike anywhere, anytime, using methods that Russian intelligence services apparently cannot predict or prevent. The psychological impact on Russian military leadership cannot be overstated. If Ukraine can repeatedly penetrate the defenses of Putin's most prized project, if they can destroy aircraft at bases thousands of kilometers from the front lines, then no Russian military asset is truly secure. The Crimean Bridge represents one of Putin's most ambitious infrastructure projects, designed not just for transportation, but as a permanent symbol of Russian territorial control. The engineering specifications are staggering. 19 kilometers of roadway and railway, supported by 596 concrete piers driven up to 100 meters deep into the seabed, with 7,000 individual piles anchoring the structure. Russia spared no expense on defensive measures after the first attack in 2022. The bridge is protected by multiple layers of security, naval patrols conducting 24-hour surveillance, underwater sensors designed to detect approaching threats, anti-aircraft systems to defend against aerial attacks, and physical barriers intended to prevent maritime approaches. Russian engineers specifically designed the bridge to withstand natural disasters, earthquakes, storms, even potential terrorist attacks. The massive concrete pillars were built to absorb enormous forces. The structure was supposed to be virtually indestructible, yet Ukrainian operatives have now successfully attacked this impregnable target 3 times, using 3 completely different approaches. The underwater mining operation represents perhaps the most challenging method yet attempted, requiring months of preparation, infiltration of heavily defended airspace and waters, and the precise placement of explosives where they would cause maximum structural damage. The fact that Ukrainian forces accomplished this while the bridge remained under constant surveillance speaks to operational capabilities that rival the world's most elite special forces units. This wasn't luck or opportunism. This was months of careful planning, precise execution, and flawless operational security. The timing of this underwater attack reveals a masterclass in strategic communication and psychological pressure. While Ukrainian and Russian negotiators sat across from each other in Istanbul, engaging in their first direct peace talks in over 2 years, Ukrainian special forces were already in position beneath the Kerch Strait, preparing to send Moscow a very different kind of message. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky later made the connection explicit when he noted, "If there had been a ceasefire, would the operation have taken place? Number." This wasn't coincidental timing. This was deliberate strategic pressure designed to demonstrate that Ukraine negotiates from a position of strength, not desperation. Russia had presented maximalist demands during the Istanbul talks, including Ukrainian withdrawal from 4 entire regions and severe limitations on Ukrainian military capabilities. Ukraine's response came not through diplomatic channels, but through underwater explosions that shook the foundations of Putin's most important infrastructure project. The message to Moscow was unmistakable. Ukraine will not be negotiating from weakness. While Russian diplomats demanded territorial concessions, Ukrainian operatives were proving that Russian territorial control itself remains fundamentally contested and vulnerable. This represents a sophisticated understanding of how military operations can influence diplomatic outcomes. Ukraine didn't just attack a bridge, they attacked the psychological foundations of Russian confidence in their ability to hold and defend occupied territory. The operation also demonstrates remarkable operational discipline. Ukrainian forces could have detonated these explosives at any time during the months of preparation, but they waited for the optimal psychological moment when the contrast between diplomatic talks and military reality would have maximum impact. The question facing military analysts worldwide isn't whether Ukraine will strike again. It's where, how, and when. In just over 3 years of conflict, Ukrainian forces have demonstrated an almost supernatural ability to adapt, innovate, and strike targets that seem beyond their reach. They've proven that no Russian infrastructure is truly safe, no defensive system is impenetrable, and no symbol of occupation is permanent. Each successful operation builds Ukrainian confidence while eroding Russian assumptions about their own security. Putin constructed this bridge to demonstrate that Crimea was permanently and irreversibly Russian territory. Every Ukrainian attack proves that claim is fundamentally hollow. Every successful operation demonstrates that occupied doesn't mean owned, and that Ukrainian sovereignty extends wherever Ukrainian forces can project power. The technological and tactical evolution we've witnessed is remarkable. From truck bombs to sea drones to underwater mining operations, Ukraine has consistently stayed ahead of Russian countermeasures. This suggests a learning organization with access to sophisticated intelligence, advanced planning capabilities, and operational security that rivals the world's most elite military units. But perhaps most importantly, these operations demonstrate that Ukraine has moved beyond purely defensive operations. They're now conducting strategic offensive campaigns designed to degrade Russian military capabilities while simultaneously influencing diplomatic negotiations. The war that began with Russian tanks crossing this very bridge into Ukrainian territory has evolved into something Putin never anticipated. Ukrainian forces striking back from beneath the waves, proving that some bridges, no matter how expensive or symbolically important, can be broken by determination, innovation, and strategic thinking. In the end, bridges are supposed to connect territories, peoples, and futures. Putin's Crimean bridge was built to connect his imperial ambitions to physical reality. Ukraine's underwater explosives just prove that some connections are more fragile than they appear, and some bridges were always meant to be temporary.